please.
Welcome to the meeting of Angus Council. I would like to remind all attendees that this meeting is being recorded and webcast live on the Council's YouTube channel. I have agreed the attendance of some members remotely, and I would remind all remote attendees to mute their microphones when not speaking, and please raise your electronic hands should you wish to speak. For members present, please raise your hand if you wish to speak. Also, as members are aware, the Special Council Minute of 2nd March 2023, item 3.1a, has not been sent to members in line with the required 3 clear days prior to the meeting. However, in accordance with the provisions of Standing Order 11.1.7, as the chair of this meeting, I determine that this minute be submitted for approval as a matter of urgency, as the minute requires to be included within the relevant volume of minutes. I also advise that an emergency motion in relation to Arbroath Lifeboat Station has been received out with the 7 clear days notice in terms of Standing Order 25.1 and a request for a deputation on the same matter. We will come back to these in due course. Is there any apologies for absence?
Yes, Provost, we have apologies from Councillors Durno, Fairweather, Fotheringham, Proctor and Stewart. And just to clarify, we have Councillor Gall and Councillor Shepherd joining remotely.
Thank you. Declarations of interest and statements of transparency. Is there any declarations of interest or statements of transparency? Nope. Now, if we move on to consider the request for a deputation. A deputation request has been received from Alex Smith in relation to the decision made by the RNLI to downgrade the lifeboat from an all-weather boat to an inshore vessel. Do members agree to hear the deputation? I would remind members that in terms of Standing Order 12.4, any member of the Council may put up relevant questions to the deputation, but cannot express an opinion until after the deputation has withdrawn. The deputation receives 10 minutes to address the meeting, followed by questions. Do you want Mr. Smith to come over just now and do the deputation? Yes. Thank you.
First of all, let me thank you for allowing me to present a record of events leading up to the present day. It's quite detailed in dates and so forth, so I hope you'll pick up on this. So back in 2013, on the 7th October, there was a coastal review to decide if Arbroath was to be awarded a new all-weather Shannon-class lifeboat or an Atlantic 85 inshore boat. We presented a detailed report to the coastal review group, which was led by Vice Admiral Sir Tim Lawrence and George Rawlinson, Operations Director at the time. On the 16th of April 2014, I received a letter from George Rawlinson confirming that on the 11th of March 2014 and resolved by the Trustee Board that there was to be no change to the cover provided by Arbroath and that a Shannon-class all-weather lifeboat is to replace the Mersey-class all-weather lifeboat. On the 23rd of January 2017, I received a letter again from George Rawlinson stating that, quote, further to my letter stated the 16th of April 2014, I have much pleasure in advising that the Trustee Board has resolved that a Shannon-class all-weather lifeboat should be allocated to Arbroath Lifeboat Station. The current RNLI plan shows a Shannon-class lifeboat has been provisionally allocated to you in 2020. It then went on to advise me to forward a letter to agree with that which had been resolved and accept the allocation. On the 11th of March then in 2019, I received another letter stating that a coastal review would again take place on the 29th of April of 2019, led again by Sir Tim Lawrence, Chairman of the Operations Committee at that time. On the 4th of December 2019, I received a letter from John Payne, who was then Director of Life-Saving Operations, saying that following the review visit, it was again agreed by the Operations Committee and resolved by the Trustee Board that there was to be no change to the configuration provided to Arbroath Lifeboat Station, and that a Shannon-class lifeboat was being allocated. And John Payne is the same person who came to the station on Friday this year, 2023, on Friday the 28th, and stated that he would solely be responsible for the decision-making, and they had reversed the decision, and we were to receive an Atlantic 85 instead of a Shannon. During the meeting previously, on Wednesday, the 22nd of February, 2023, John Payne stated that the previous coastal reviews were nothing more than a half-hour chat with a cup of tea before they awarded us the Shannon. It was also stated by Alan Stewart, who attended as one of the deputations there, that was when the Blue Blazer Brigade came and awarded you a Shannon. An RNLI committee came to Arbroath Station last night. This is up to date now, with the aim of explaining the reasons supporting the decision to place an Atlantic 85 in Arbroath. However, despite all our questions covering all aspects of funding, launch and recovery, and infrastructure to enable an Atlantic 85 to be operational in Arbroath, we received no definitive answers. They repeated that the life-saving capabilities of the area would improve, but when asked how the provision of a Shannon and Broughty Ferry and an Atlantic 85 in Arbroath would achieve that, there was no answer. Broughty Ferry all-weather lifeboat only left the river for an open sea shout last year on one occasion. On the other hand, Arbroath attended over 40 shouts, all to open water off Arbroath. I'd like to then speak about the money that's in the fund for Arbroath. There is £3,920,517 in a restricted fund held for Arbroath. Specifically, £30,000 for crew training, £2,395,380 for an all-weather lifeboat, £7,369 for a D-class boat, and £1,247,000 for shore works. The specific funds are only to be used in Arbroath for the purposes stated as per donors and legators requested. Myself and the crew are all volunteers, and our main priority is to save lives at sea. But to do that, we need the best possible vessel available, which is the Shannon all-weather lifeboat, to ensure that the safety of the crew when they're out on a call. There's a lot more I could say, but I realise I'm restricted by time. So if you have any questions that you'd like to put to me, I'll try my best to give you a comprehensive answer.
Has anyone any questions? Councillor Wan. Councillor Bell. Councillor Doran. Any further questions? So we'll start with Councillor Wan.
Thank you, Provost, and thank you, Mr. Smith, for the deputation today. Just a couple of, well, one question actually. I've got a few friends that are on the crew of the lifeboat, as you're probably aware, and I read in the paper about the safety issues with this boat because it's an inshore boat that you're going to be provided with. We're obviously right on the coast. Is there a safety issue? Is it a huge issue to use this boat launched into the North Sea for rescue? I'm not in any way or manner means a seagoing person, so.
The Atlantic 85 is a capable boat, but in our opinion, for the conditions that we go out in the North Sea, then it certainly is not. That was stated recently when we attended the call out for the Storm Marwin, when we were the first boat to respond to that call. If I was told that morning that the Montrose boat couldn't launch because they didn't have a crew, but eventually they did launch alongside the Arbroath boat. But if it had been Atlantic 85 and Montrose hadn't launched, there is a possibility that ship would have gone aground and there would have been 5 men lost. And the other occasion I could bring, for example, was when the 2 jet skiers, when the Broughty Ferry was launched their boat, we were asked to attend. And again, if it had been an Atlantic 85, I wouldn't have authorised that launch. I wouldn't have felt safe with putting my guys out in that kind of weather. And then, subsequently, it was the Arbroath boat that found these two guys and saved their lives. And if there'd been an Atlantic in Arbroath at that time, these two lives would have been lost. So from that point of view, we see the Shannon being suited for inshore waters, basically for the rivers. And let me stress, we have no gripe with Broughty Ferry about receiving the Shannon. In fact, I advocated that a Shannon should be positioned at both stations and the throws so that they'd be interchangeable with crews and so forth. But the Atlantic, if you were to make a decision, the Atlantic should be in Broughty Ferry and the Shannon should be Arbroath. It's as simple as that. Yeah.
Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Provost, and thank you, Mr. Smith. I really value the work that the RNLI does, and in fact, my family has had connections over many years with the ferry boat. And you mentioned briefly there, I just wanted a bit of clarity. You're not asking for a direct swap with the ferry. Do you believe there's enough activity across both RNLI stations to warrant a Shannon in each? And you're not asking for the ferry one to be reduced to an Atlantic 85. That would be my question. Thanks.
Well, as I said, and I stated to the one there, we have no qualms whatsoever about Shannon going up there. But if you have to make a considered choice, then it should be the opposite way about. But like I say again, if you're going to cover your flank stations and that station goes down, then you should have the same asset to cover that area. If you don't have the same asset, if Broughty Ferry goes down and the weather's poor, the next station along the line is Montrose. That could take them 2 hours to get there. That could be too late. You're putting lives at risk. Simple as that.
Shannon in both Broughty Ferry and Arbroath. Thanks.
Councillor Doran.
And thank you very much. I think you've partly answered this question, but it relates to the range that you cover from Arbroath, and I think you partly answered it in that last question, but it's about how far can you cover from Arbroath, and does this change affect, or might it affect, how much you can cover?
We are a part of the report. We received a letter from the fishermen of Arbroath. There's about 22 creel boats in the 8 metre to 10 metre class. These boats have started working much further afield, out to 25 to 30 miles. And they're quite concerned that if they have a breakdown, then we will not be able to attend that. And they say, well, the usual answer is the flank station will cover it. But we are closest to these stations. And also the wind farm, we advocated that there'll be a lot of traffic and vessels in that area. And they discounted that, saying they'll look after themselves. However, in the last 3 months, we've had 3 call-outs to go to that area. And they discounted again, saying, well, Montrose is there. We said, but we're closest. Why does the Coast Guard call me to authorise the launch if Montrose is nearer? They pick a graph and they plot that course, and they decide which station is to respond. And each time they've picked Arbroath to go there. But we couldn't do that within the Latin 85. It's just out of our range.
Any further questions? No, thank you very much, and indeed for your time, Mr. Smith. We will get round to debating it in probably about 10-15 minutes, hopefully. So if you want to take your seat back, and I will move on to number 3, which is the minutes of the council and committees. The minutes of council meetings submitted for approval as correct records, the minutes of the meetings of Special Council of 2nd of March 2023 and Angus Council of 16th March 2023. Are these approved? Okay. Minutes of committee meetings C to J are for noting. Are we noting them? Thank you. So we'll move on to motions in terms of Standing Order 25.1. The first one of these today is the right to strike. This has been brought forward by Councillor Scott, who will speak to her motion. But before you start, have you a seconder? And who's that? Councillor Dorn. Okay, thank you. Right, Councillor Scott.
Aye, thanks, Provost. This motion relates to the retained EU law revocation and reform bill, the purpose of which is to give powers to revoke, modify, update or replace certain retained EU law to ministers. The bill, as it currently stands, would mean that laws which derive from our membership of the EU would lapse at the end of 2023 unless there is a decision by ministers to keep, amend or replace them. There is little clarity on what would happen to which laws and to which laws it covers. Legislation that relates to workers and their relationships with their employers. This motion is to request that the Chief Executive writes to the Prime Minister on behalf of Angus Council, Angus Council's elected members if the motion is passed, that the elected members have passed a motion that they are opposed to the retained EU law bill because it may mean that workers' rights such as fair treatment, reasonable working hours, rest breaks are removed through this bill. Workers' rights, including their right to take industrial action in a dispute with their employer, is an attack on our democracy and must be opposed.
Thank you. And second by Councillor Dorn.
Yep, thank you. Second what my colleague Jill Scott has just said. We've heard yesterday that the bill might be subject to an amendment, which might delay the timeline for addressing all the laws, but we should still convey our position as a council to the Prime Minister regarding its potential impact on our workers and relationships between employers and workers.
Thank you very much, Councillor Dorn. Does anyone have any questions? A question, Councillor Wan.
Thank you, Provost. I've actually got a comment as well after this, but just for a point of clarification question. At the very start of the council, you said we weren't going to be having motions that involved writing to Holyrood, writing to Westminster, political, etc., when it's out with the gift to the council. Why are we hearing this one today?
I had a conversation with Councillor Scott on that, and I thought, well, she did at least give me the courtesy of doing that. I thought long and hard about it. Yes, I still would like the gates opening for everyone else to do that, and I would certainly hope that from after this date, that spirit will still be, will move forward. Thank you. Comment then. We'll go to everyone else with comments afterwards.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much, Provost. Well, I believe that Councillor Scott is acting from a good place. Every member here wants to see our valued workers paid well and thriving under our employ. But at a time when our council is now routinely having to pay Peter with the money that suddenly vanishes from Paul's pay deal, gestures like this seem to be decoupled from the reality of what faces us. As we're speaking, colleagues, colleges and universities are scrambling to find millions of pounds the Scottish Government pull from them to pay for what teaching unions wanted earlier this year. But addressing this motion, there are the facts. The bill is intended to safeguard critical services like ambulance, fire and rescue and transport. Like measures already in France, Germany, Spain and Italy, it will put minimum life and limb services levels in place while still allowing industrial action. Jobs and livelihoods will be protected during lawful action. The right to strike, such as those we have seen plenty of across Scotland and the Western world, will not be affected, and it would help to remove any uncertainty felt by those striking in case of an emergency. At the level we are responsible for, gestures, political aside, council services provide for the most vulnerable in our society, and that is why this motion we cannot support.
Any further comments? Councillor Melville, I saw your hand first, and then Councillor Clark. Any further comments asked? No? Yeah. Oh, sorry, Councillor Speed, sorry. Any further? No, that's fine. With that in mind, we will go with Councillor Melville.
Thank you, Provost. I support this motion wholeheartedly, and I commend Councillor Scott and Councillor Dorn for bringing it forward. The EU retained law bill and the minimum service levels bill are draconian pieces of legislation designed to put workers' rights on the scrap heap. But don't take my word for it. Listen to stakeholders. Unison has called the EU retained law bill a bonfire of workers' rights. And Thomson's solicitors said nobody signed up to giving ministers in Westminster free rein to abolish or restate workplace rights like paid annual leave, parental leave, and protections on transfer of undertakings. Provost, these bills are disgraceful and they must be opposed. And make no mistake, they are a systematic attack on the rights of every worker, including staff who work for this council. And all of us should today stand up for those staff. We are faced by an out-of-touch Tory government desperately seeking to make life worse and less secure for working class people. Isn't it a tale as old as time, Provost? But I must say I am disappointed in the supposed alternative too, because on the third reading of the EU retained law bill, this bill that threatens the protections at work we all cherish, the leader of the Labour Party, Keir Starmer, didn't bother to turn up and vote against it. Now, all of us on these administration benches support this motion, and the Scottish Parliament has refused legislative consent to the bills, but we are facing their imposition regardless. So I appeal to the non-aligned members here and to the wider public of Angus. Wouldn't it be better to have these decisions over workers' rights and protections made here in Scotland and not in a crumbling palace on the Thames by governments we don't elect? Provost, if Scotland was independent today, we wouldn't have to write letters to an out-of-touch Tory Prime Minister. We'd just get on with the job of enhancing workers' rights and building a better country. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Melville. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Provost, and good afternoon, colleagues and the wider public. Now, it's not that long ago that we commemorated Workers' Memorial Day. I haven't forgotten that moving day that we remembered people who were injured or even killed. So for me, I'm very pleased that my colleague, Councillor Scott, brings this motion to us today. Workers must be able to strike as a last resort. It's never taken lightly. But as a lifelong trade unionist and past shop steward, I must champion the rights of workers to strike in those situations. And I'll just sum up very quickly. I take today's opportunity to endorse this motion. Provost, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Councillor Speed.
Thank you, Provost. Yeah, I am absolutely fully support Councillor Scott and Councillor Doran's motion. I don't think there's ever been a more crucial time to support our workers. I think they're, across the various fields of employment are under, tremendous pressures. Many people struggling with the cost of living. Our inequalities are growing within our communities. Even within our very workforce within Angus, employees not sure, how safe their job is. And going through review after review and restructure after restructure, there's never been a more critical time to stand united with our workforces who do a tremendous job on the front line. Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Speed, thank you very much for that. Councillor Braze.
Thank you very much, Provost. I think Councillor Speed and Melville and perhaps Councillor Clark, through their words, have given you complete vindication for your decision to allow this motion to be presented. Angus Council is an employer of many people, and we councillors have a responsibility to them, and I feel to their right to strike. And anything we can do to further that and secure that, we should be doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Braze. Councillor Scott, to sum up. Remember to put on your mic. Thanks, Councillor Scott.
Thank you, Provost. I've been a member of a union for over 20 years. I've been out on strike myself on several occasions in different local authorities that I've worked in. But we also must protect the rights of people, for the right to the working time, the right to breaks, the right to annual leave. All these things are at risk under this bill, and multiple other pieces of legislation are at risk. So I think I would just ask everybody to please support everybody, the workers at Angus. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Scott. Are we all agreeing to the motion? Agreed. Thank you. Sorry, funding. Councillor Wan will speak to his motion, and do you have a seconder? Councillor Nicholl, thank you.
Thank you, Provost. Over this past years and many years previously, the Angus Council has had to countenance one basic fact, that there is not enough money coming in to run all the public services. Not just the things which are nice to have, but even statutory services have been cut to the bone. So it is very important that we get the most out of public money now, by hook or by crook. Neither this council nor the wider public will ever know what happened to COVID funding that was paid out to various groups in Angus during the pandemic. Those groups which were politically aligned and could provide neither receipt nor explanation nor proof for why they were asking for the public money. Apparently volunteer-led organisations which paid no wages, provided no receipts for rents and could provide no explanation for why they needed this amount of cash. After battling for answers for so long and meeting only silence, we must have to content ourselves that this has gone to ground, but the stench remains. I would like to propose a motion today which seeks to stop this happening again. God forbid there will ever be another COVID-19, but if there is an event which shakes our lives to the very core in the same way, we could reasonably expect the same level of financial support from the UK Government. That being the case, I propose a fail-safe, a democratic backstop that would protect any furlough or business support type payment from falling into the wrong hands. I propose that political applications of this type would be reviewed, itemised and signed off as part of the normal scrutiny and audit process. This will be cost-neutral exercise. And I do not believe it will take a committee very long to exercise this oversight in the terrible event that is needed. We have an opportunity and an obligation to the people of Angus to make sure the public money is used for its proper purposes and in line with the regulations and their intent. I do not see why this needs to come to a vote, but I would like to propose this motion and ask for your support.
Thank you. Your seconder?
Thank you. Thank you, Provost. I'd like to echo what my colleague has just said, and do have great concerns of the fundings, etc., in the council. And I second this motion.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? Councillor Devine.
Thank you, Provost. I just have a very simple question. I'm concerned that there might be extra work for very hard-pressed staff to bring forward some of these reports that Councillor Wan is so desperately keen to get. Can anybody give me a feeling that staff are not going to be overloaded? I suspect that a lot of that information is already there. So I hope that it wouldn't be, encouraging a lot more work for staff that you're concerned about.
I can't see Councillor. Yeah, I was looking for Councillor Ian Warrenburg. Yes, of course you can. Yes, sorry, I was just looking. He's finding. Oh, you are. Sorry, hiding. Sorry, my apologies.
Okay, just to give some assurance to Councillor Devine, when this motion came, it was my very thought to ask staff what were the implications of that. And just as you say, a lot of this information is already there. So we didn't think it was too onerous to produce a report if that's what elected members voted today.
Great, thank you. Any further questions? And apologies, Chief Exec. Any comments? Councillor Whiteside.
Thank you, Provost. I was a little bit bemused when I saw this. It felt to me as if somehow the integrity of people involved were being questioned. I also agree that I don't think there's a need for a vote on this one, but I would, for the avoidance of doubt, like to stress that I've got complete confidence in the teams in the council who processed any monies, particularly during the pressured circumstances of the pandemic. And I've got utmost confidence in the internal audit team and the work that's been done and reported to Scrutiny and Audit Committee in the past. I don't think really there's anything further to say.
Thank you, Councillor Whiteside. I don't see any other further comments, so I'll let you summarise, Councillor Wan.
Thank you again, Provost. Just a very quick sum up then, and thank you for listening, and hopefully this will just be supported and go through. I don't think anybody was questioning the staff of Angus Council as such. The Audit Commission has made a statement that they are never going to be able to get to the bottom of where a lot of this COVID money came from. That was a little bit concerning when we read that in the last year or so. So it was really just to ask for the sign off by elected members or at least an overview, scrutiny and audit of this, if there is any other funding that's going to be made available. Thank you.
So is that agreed? Thank you. Emergency motion. Councillor Spies has submitted an emergency motion. This has been submitted out with the required time frame. However, in terms of Standing Order 11.7, I am going to rule that the item be considered as a matter of urgency by reason of special circumstances, as Councillor Speed has clarified that the motion was submitted out with the time frame due to the timing of the RNLI decision, this being a live matter and crisis for those affected. I ask Councillor Speed to speak to her motion, and do you have a seconder?
Thanks, Provost. Yes, I do. Councillor Cowdy.
Thank you.
Okay, today, colleagues, my motion is asking you all to agree to Angus Council sending out an SOS to the Royal National Lifeboat Institution and to ask them to reconsider their recent decision to downgrade Arbroath's lifeboat. This decision has sent shockwaves throughout the community due to broken promises and a lack of transparency in terms of explaining to all concerned as to how this decision was reached. Let us stand in solidarity with our local lifeboat crew who courageously and selflessly risk their lives to save others. The North Sea can be a savage environment to navigate, and we must listen to those who know these waters best. Mr. Smith and his crew have decades of experience. The RNLI's mission statement is every life matters. Let's make sure that we do all we can to help support and protect the lives of our local crew now and for future generations.
Sorry, and now Councillor Cowdy.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to second and speak in support of this motion. First, I want to thank Mr. Smith for his very valuable deputation, and I want to pay tribute to the exceptional team at Arbroath Lifeboat Station and the incredible and brave work that they do. I, along with so many others, recently attended the public meeting in Arbroath, which was absolutely packed. I've never seen such a big meeting in all my time in Arbroath. And I've also been stopped in who are shocked and upset and also confused by the lack of transparency they perceive to be the case. I really want to emphasise just how much having a top grade all-weather lifeboat really means to the community of Arbroath and to my constituents. I can assure people that the elected members of the administration in Arbroath are continuing to work with our MP and our MSP to challenge this decision. And today I also ask the Chief Executive to write to the RNLI and urge them to reconsider. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cowdy. Any questions? Any comments? Councillor Wan. Oh, so Councillor Shepherd. Right, Councillor Wan.
Thank you again, Provost. Just very briefly, just to say that we're delighted that Councillor Speeds brought this motion today as an emergency. It is something that's critical to Arbroath and for saving lives on sea, so she has the full backing, I'm sure, of the Council, along with the opposition members of this Council. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Shepherd.
I would also like to thank Councillor Speed for bringing this emergency motion today. I've lived in Arbroath all my life, and especially the Arbroath Cliffs are a busy area, and I know there's a lot of call-outs from the RNLI there, and I was genuinely shocked at the decision, and I really hoped, and from what I've seen in the town at the meeting, I think that the people of Arbroath will will not let this rest, and I really hope that the RNL will quickly change the decision. But if that's not the case, I'm sure there'll be a campaign around this, and I support that campaign, and so do other local councillors. And I very much hope that this decision will be overturned for the safety of the people out at sea. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. No further comments. Is that all agreed? Thank you. Moving on to number 5, Business Gateway Tayside, appointment of elected member to the Business Gateway Board. And Mr. Mark Davison is to introduce this.
Thank you, Provost. This report asks committee to appoint an elected member to the Business Gateway Board as an observer in accordance with the policy on appointments to the outside bodies. Councillors recently approved report number 12023, the Business Gateway Contract Update at Policy and Resources Committee on the 2nd of May, which outlined the arrangements for this board.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions or comments? It's recommended that the Council makes an appointment to the Business Gateway Tayside Board as per report number 88/22 as an observer in accordance with the policy on appointments of elected members to outside bodies. Is that agreed? Or noted? Or noted? Sorry? Oh, who's that going to be then? Sorry. Sorry. Do you have a nomination, Councillor Whiteside?
Thank you, Provost. Yes, as is typical, I'd like to propose the convener of communities, Councillor MacDonald.
Councillor MacDonald. Do you have a seconder? Councillor Braze. Is that agreed? Thank you. Oh yes, do you agree, Councillor MacDonald? Great, thank you. Right, we are now on to the last point of the agenda today, review of standing orders, and Mrs. Alison Watson to introduce.
Thank you, Provost. We have before you a report today with proposed standing orders for approval. Officers have undertaken a review of the current standing orders in consultation with the Governance Member Officers Working Group and have put forward this revised version. I have one additional proposed recommendation to add to the report. That would be a recommendation 5, that a report is brought back to Council to review these changes and to consider any further updates that may be required 1 year after the commencement of the new scheme of governance. Sorry, Councillor Speed.
Sorry, no, I just wanted to give notice of another amendment, if that's okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. So, yeah.
Yeah, that was all really I had to say.
Yeah. Okay, right. So does anyone have any further questions? I know we had a meeting this morning about it, but does anyone have any further questions or comments of Mrs. Watson? Oh, Councillor Duff.
Yes, Provost, just for clarification, we have to agree the option from, I think, Standing Order 4. So I would be proposing option 4 and within that particular one. So that would be, if you like, a motion.
Yes, that's what I was going to move on to next. So you're moving number 4. Yep. And do you have a second? And Councillor Braze is seconding that. And Councillor Speed has an amendment. Yes. Okay. And do you have a seconder? Right. Lovely. Councillor Donnelly. Okay, so what is your amendment?
It would be in relation to the next recommendation.
Right.
Yeah.
So if we can consider the option
Yep.
in relation to Standing Order 4 first, Robert.
Right. Yes. Right. So does that make sense to you? Yep. Okay. So we are we agreeing therefore for going for option 4? Wonderful. Thank you. Moving on to number 2, which is note the proposed change of the format for elected members' budget proposals in terms of the annual meeting of the council to set council tax as outlined in paragraph 4. Councillor Whiteside.
Thank you, Provost. Just with the added caveat that this will be discussed further at PBSG.
Right.
Possible?
Yep, that sounds, yeah, that's sense. So moving on.
Provost, just to
yes, sorry.
acknowledge, we'll
Yes.
take that as an action.
Oh, yes, right. We'll take that. You'll take that as an action. Thank you. Okay, and so we're now moving on to number 3, which is to give consideration for number 3.
We can consider the amendment.
And we can consider the amendment now. Okay. And that's being sent out to all members now. Great. Are we going to take a 5-minute recess? Yeah, I think so. Yeah. No, that's because it comes to me. That's why I think we'll take a 5-minute recess so everyone gets a chance to read that, Mark. Councillor MacDonald.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Right, councillors, moving back, the amendment is in relation to the new Standing Order 11. Does anyone want to move the option as detailed in the report specifically about motion number 11? Bill, Councillor Duff.
Yeah, thanks, Provost. Just for clarification, the new standing order proposed is standing order 11 and it's item 6. So that is the published proposed standing order. Therefore, I take it that is the motion that we accept that. Okay.
Yes.
This was discussed at some length during the MOG. The MOG, I think under advice, well, I think the MOG view, the majority MOG view was that the motion, the standing order is as we wished it. That was the strong advice from legal officers. The reasons for that, I suppose, are, well, there's several reasons. It was seen that accepting deputations from staff brings us into the area where we're into dealing with operational matters. And there is a number of means of redress for staff if they have grievances that they can be taken through trade unions and through the general consultative processes the council has. And this was not considered wise that deputation should be accepted by council. So for that reason, we're happy with the wording of 11.6. And I would propose that we accept that.
Okay. Do you have a seconder for that? Councillor Whiteside. Therefore, we now move back and you can now speak on your amendment.
Okay, thank you, colleagues, and thanks for taking the time to consider my amendment. You may have already made up your minds. However, before you do so completely, I would like to draw your attention to the Council's values. The Council has identified the following clear themes: continuing to care for our people, both citizens and colleagues; acknowledging our core role is to serve; working more collaboratively across the organisation and with partners to best serve our public; developing our culture of honesty and integrity to build trust; demonstrating and operating with respect for others; treating people fairly and with equity. How can we truly live by these values when we do not allow free speech and fair representation around the table when making decisions? Our actions must speak louder than our words. Staff are the front line of council service delivery. They know better than anybody else that the impact of cuts and changes to working practices will have on service users and our communities. By allowing representatives to speak to council committees, we can ensure that we are all fully appraised of the impacts of the decisions that we might take. There needs to be a formal route for those who formally represent staff to bring concerns about council services and delivery to all elected members. As it stands, that route does not exist. Many of our neighbouring local authorities have no such restrictions on staff representatives addressing committees, and for others, they simply drop their standing orders and suspend them by agreement of committee to allow a delegation to speak. Angus should have no restrictions. This is very simple, and my questions to you all are you with the people and for the people? Do you believe in democracy or do you not? Today is a chance for you to vote for democracy. Please vote for my amendment.
Does anyone have any comments? 4 questions, sorry, to start with. Oh, your seconder. Sorry, my apologies.
My seconder is Councillor Doran. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we need to be conscious and aware of the repercussions of all our decisions as councillors. And I don't see how we can do that by creating this additional barrier to hear from speakers. A request to speak as a deputation always needs to be agreed by those in the council. And so this motion creates an additional barrier for people to do that. In the notes relating to this change, it states that councillors are required to provide strategic leadership and oversight. This involves setting strategy and policy, scrutinising and making major complex decisions that concern the council as a whole. I believe that in order for us to do this, we need to be able to hear from people from time to time regarding issues and decisions that we might be making. Today, we've heard concern for council workers across a number of items on the agenda, including regarding the capacity to support one of the motions submitted. So this change to me doesn't make sense in the context of everything else that's going on. So I wish to support the amendment that's put forward. Thanks.
Has anyone got any questions? Councillor Wan.
Very quick question, actually. And Margot, sorry for putting you on the spot, but can I ask what the Chief Executive's thoughts on this amendment are?
Well, I mean, my thoughts are irrelevant when it comes to obviously elected members voting, but I would point you to the fact that we have very good relationships with trade unions. You've heard that when we've set budgets. Also, you appoint me as the head of paid service, and my role is to provide you with the staff and the resources that's required, and that's in statute in terms of how we do things. If there was information to be imparted to you around a budget decision or a terms and condition decision that had been taken, it would come in the form of various reports to either service committees or to the budget committee itself. So I hope that helps.
Any further questions? Any comments? Councillor Whiteside.
Thank you, Provost.
Oh, I'm going to see if there's any other ones first, though. Whiteside. No one else? Nope. So, Councillor Whiteside.
Thank you, Provost. I do appreciate the spirit in which this amendment was brought, absolutely. However, I think as councillors we have to recognise the scope and the limitations of our role and avoid treading into operational matters. As Mrs Williamson pointed out, there are other channels for those issues to be raised, such as the Central Consultative Committee, etc. So I, in this instance, would like to support the motion.
So will we go to the vote?
Thank you, Provost. The motion by Councillor Duff, seconded by Councillor Whiteside, is to adopt the wording in relation to requests to speak as detailed within the report. That is the new Standing Order 11. The amendment by Councillor Speed, seconded by Councillor Doran, is that in relation to the new Standing Order 11, this does not exclude the consideration of staffing terms and conditions. And please vote motion or amendment. Provost.
Motion.
Deputy Provost.
Motion.
Motion.
I was off.
Councillor Bell. Councillor.
Motion.
Councillor Cheap.
Motion.
Councillor Cowdy.
Motion.
Councillor Devine.
Motion.
Councillor Doran. Councillor Duff.
Motion.
Councillor Gall.
Motion.
Councillor Gregg. Councillor MacDonald.
Motion.
Councillor McLaren.
Motion.
Councillor Meakin. Councillor Melville. Councillor Gavin Nicholl.
Motion.
Councillor Louise Nicholl. Councillor Scott.
Amendment.
Councillor Shepherd.
Motion.
Councillor Speed.
Amendment.
Councillor Wan. Councillor Whiteside.
Motion.
The motion is carried by 20 votes to 3.
And leading on to the last paragraph, are we agreeing number 4? Thank you. That's it. Oh, yes. You're going to stop the live stream?